person on it? I don't know.
But that's something. Right.
Job to figure out.
I got you.
You're in?
Irritated me.
Okay.
Ready or wrong, you know, I feel like I need some.
I guess we must have the conditions.
We don't know something.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is this?
Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and call us to order here at 5:30. Just waiting for the clock to hit 5:30, here we are. So I will call us to order. I'm here, Renee is not able to join us tonight. Emily?
Yes.
April? Here. Chris?
Yes.
Kyle?
Here.
Marcus?
Present.
Aaron?
Yep.
Jada? Yay, everyone, welcome. All right, hopefully board members have had a chance to look over the agenda. If that's the case, if there are no changes, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that. Thank you, Emily and April, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, our agenda is approved. We actually do not have a student council report tonight, for one of the best reasons ever. Our student council representatives are participating in a forensics or speech competition tonight. So they're not here with us because they're doing something wonderful out in the world, and that is wonderful. So we will hear from them next month. Do we have any persons requesting an audience with the board?
Did you push play?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for checking. You're welcome. He did tell me before I, yep.
You need your spotlight, huh?
Any persons requesting an audience with the board? Going once, going twice, all right. On to our consent agenda. There are some minutes for review, and then Kyle, is there anything you wanna point out from our invoices and receipts this month?
Yeah, for expenses, check 29308 is the dinner theater, that's our musical theater class is going for $859.08. The sales bill is 29346 for 2,528, that's our online subscription to people that take online classes. And Foster and Foster, 29352, the bill for $4,875. That is an actuary study that's required every 2 years for our retirement benefits.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the fruit sale is the FFA fruit sale, so that's money that comes in and comes out. That's $29,418 for $1,469.10. And county leader bill is a little larger at $1,220.90 because the community ed pamphlet went out, and that's $800 of that $1,220. So if you look, that's a little larger than normal, but that's normal. So. And on the receipt side, we received in January municipality taxes from 9 of our 10 municipalities. That's good. And then more will be coming in February as well. Oh, one thing I should point out is we have a donation. If you look at 252076 and 242077 from Delta Airlines. It's anonymous, but it's two $4,500 checks we received. There must be a former Delta or current Delta Airlines employee that has a match with their company. So we put that, Libby and I decided to put that towards our speech program and our math counts programs. So, and we don't know who the person is.
No, and it's really, you can hardly find out, because we got one at the library. We really wanted to know, and we did some digging, and we hit dead ends. So, like, it's
Right, we did a
anonymous.
little,
Yeah.
and I guess that's the way they want it.
And
So
that's
that-
what they wanted, so
Yeah,
it's
so it,
wonderful.
but just come 2 checks came, and you're like, okay, well, it's really nice. And then if you look at your 25-26 budget summary, you always look at the percentages on the side. At this point, this is through January, so it's 5/12, so the way through the year, so it's about 42%, and you can see where the accounts are. Everything looks in line. The insurance is at 69%, but that's because we paid for it for the months coming up ahead. So otherwise, everything's tracking well. The first 2 are basically salaries for staff here, which are at 43 and 47%, so we're tracking as we should be. And that's the budget report.
Alright. Any questions for Kyle about receipts or invoices or budget update? Do you wanna talk about personnel changes, Kyle? Or
Sure.
add in as you want?
Our second grade teacher, Natalie Olson, is going out on maternity leave whenever her baby's born, and Nancy Gill is gonna be long-term sub for that position. We're really fortunate to have a veteran like that step in and do that. And then Wendy Canaver is retiring from our Roots and Branches. She had retired once before and it was, working part-time, and now she has to be complete because of WRS rules. And Carol Lanza, our speech and language pathologist, is retiring active June 30th. And that'll be a difficult position to fill because there's less speech pathologists coming out than what is out there. In fact, I looked online today and I think there's 12 or 13 school districts across the state looking, including CISA 11 and Ladysmith. So that's gonna be a tough one to fill, but we will start the posting tomorrow for that.
I'd just really like to thank both of those ladies for their service to our district and students. They've had long careers and wonderful, wonderful
How long has
service.
Sterling's been here?
Less than a dozen years here, but 35 in education.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, she works with my son, I really like her.
Mhm.
She's fabulous, yeah. We have been lucky to enjoy both of them for as long as we've been able to. I have some donations to recognize. We had, donations this month from Spark of totes of school supplies. Spark also donated $1,624 toward our negative lunch balances. We seem to be making strong headway on those. Youth Sports made a donation toward the elementary thematic unit trip, as did the PTO. So hopefully that will be a wonderful thing, thanks to their generosity. We have the, the Delta Airlines Anonymous, donation in the total of $9,000 that Kyle was talking about. Annie Lupo donated some ice skates. It's unique for a district to be able to have an ice skating program like we do, supported by donations like that and a lot of volunteer hours to make that program work, to make the rink function and tie the skates and all of those things. So that's always incredible. So thank you to Annie. And then Crosswalk Community Church donated a Subway supper for the parent-teacher conferences. So that's also wonderful, important. So thank you to everybody that continues to support all of the different things that we have going on in the district. Also within our consent agenda, we have we'll be accepting the 2025-26 mid-year achievement gap reduction report. That report is part of your extras for review. Do you guys wanna
Aaron can
talk a little bit about that?
You wanna do it now?
Yeah, you wanna do it now?
It's something we accept as part of the consent agenda, but we should
Yes.
take a peek at it.
I printed it for you, cause it
Yep,
might
let's do it.
might make life easier.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's a little funny, cause you really, so this is my first time going through their format, right, cause I haven't done it. But, the format's really a fall-spring overlook, so, I broke up fall and last testing was December. So, we'll be able to add a third set of data points in March. But I think there needs to be a submission now. So I added, on the far right column is December, and I added in red kind of the noticings that I noticed. At the kindergarten level, we know that between each set of testing, the benchmark goes up, right? We reasonably, they would expect kids to know more. And there's a big jump from when you start kindergarten to that December testing. So I wasn't super shocked that that wasn't huge gains right out the bat, but we should see those gains in March. But most of our grade levels, if you go down through, we're pulling kids out of that well below average level, and adding more kids to the above and well above average. So that's really good to see. And granted, it's a snapshot, right? It's just one Ames Web test. In the performance objectives columns, I've laid out what is actually being measured in that Ames Web test, if you're curious. It'll show you what's being assessed. What I do like about Ames Web is it'll give us gives you an overall testing national percentile, but then it gives you a national percentile for each of those individual skills. So I can see that a student might be in the 95th percentile for initial sounds, 80th percentile for phoneme segmentation, and then all of a sudden 24th percentile for letter word sound fluency. Oh, now we know exactly where that intervention needs to be. Because it's not this overall umbrella score, they give you a national percentile for each skill. So that is a change that I do like about AimsWeb instead of FastBridge. So this is kind of a broad snapshot. We will be able to add the state test to 3rd grade, but we don't get those results until like the end of May, beginning of June. So I don't really have them to put on a AGR report, but for future, I can put last year's, right? And we can look at ongoing progress, so that's where we're at. There's not a lot of changes to the report outside the scores each year. This year might look different because we're using AimsWeb instead of FastBridge.
Sure.
I can explain, the whole point of AGR is the funding that help keep the class sizes smaller, right? And it used to be called SAGE, remember that?
Yep,
Yeah.
I do.
So we have to describe what we're doing, within our classes to support the learning in smaller class sizes, and we have 2 sections that are larger for Frederic, you know, not state average large, but larger for Frederic. 1st grade is 22 kids, 2nd grade is at, maybe it's backwards, 22 and 23, those sections. And so we do have an aide that is a general ed aide who's with 2nd grade all day. So we have some higher needs. And then, we have that instructional coaching support from Kelly Fisher right now. Those are all things that are listed as reasonable to continue to get that AGR funding. So I have to kind of detail at each grade level what we're doing. And we have our RTI, our tier 2 and 3 support with, our reading specialist, Jess Richter and Dino Knaber. At a tier 2 level. So we have a lot going on in a small district when you start mapping it out on paper. So, so all good stuff. And hopefully we can really see, those numbers rise in March. The progress monitoring data is trending in the right direction, so.
Wait, can you help me out for a second? A lot of the acronyms, I'm like, right?
Yeah.
So with our, the AGR website is different than we pay for AimsWeb to do the statistics kind of thing, to work with AGR?
So we
Because
get
we switched a system, if that's what you're saying,
a
we switched.
screener, yeah.
Yep.
So we used to have 3 times a year, we did a screener with a product called FastBridge.
Right,
Now we have a product called AimsWeb.
and then you just submit it to the AGR.
This report.
Right,
I
so they
have to-
recognize like that.
Yep, and I'll, like 3 times a year, I have to submit, update a report on what we're doing and where we're at. We legally have to, I have to, report to the board, right? So
Right.
that's what I'm doing tonight,
Okay,
and we'll do it again in the spring.
and then with this AGR, does that, cause I'm like, you know how they do the state report cards? Does that data go from AGR to the state report card?
No, AGR is really just associated with like federal funding.
Okay.
Right,
So
it's
they
just
don't
I'm just trying to
It's
like.
like, here's the
Oh, it's good,
connect
but
the
they don't talk to
pieces.
each other.
Okay, Don't know how
it's,
they all connect.
here's the hoops you have to jump if you want the money.
okay,
If you
So
don't
this
hit,
is about-
if you don't hit those marks, you don't get the money.
the funding.
Right, so we
Is
have
it
to
like
show
a
that.
grant
This is
kind of
kinda like
thing?
reporting.
Kinda,
Yeah,
or
I mean-
just, okay, just funding.
It's for low income districts,
Okay.
right? And, you know, everybody doesn't necessarily utilize AGR dollars, but Frederic has always had something,
Yeah, the majority do.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's,
I'm like trying to.
Yeah, no, they're great questions. There are a lot of acronyms, and AGR
Oh, yeah.
is just the name of
That's
the
all right.
report. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a lot, it is a lot, and so they report to us so that we can say, yes, we've seen the report, so we accept the report as, when we approve our consent agenda, we're just accepting that, yes, the report was brought to the attention of the board
Right,
and we've seen
yeah,
It's a checks and balances to make sure the school districts are keeping an eye on performance data and growth.
Right.
and Keeping the main thing, the main thing.
Yeah, and so then if there were issues in here, like when Erin's talking about, okay, we can see there's one spot here where there was some decrease, but she can explain that in the kindergarten, when the benchmark changes, here's what happens. So
Yeah.
we know then, okay, yep, something happened, but it's already something that they're aware of, and they know what they're doing about, what's in place to navigate that.
Yeah.
And that way, if all of those areas came back where we were experiencing decreases, that would be our signal to say, hang on, what are we doing? What's happening?
Can I ask one more?
Absolutely.
So when you're talking about benchmark, is it on the standardized testing? So
Yeah,
they're like,
so-
okay, like, we're raising it to
Yeah,
this
so the-
level.
Yep, so basically the test says, the average student based on a national percentile, so all the kids who take this exact test, Ames Web test, in the nation, should score about, or should know these things
Okay,
in September. They should know these things in December, they should know these things in March.
right,
Right, and so that expectation goes up, so if your kids aren't growing, you would see their scores continue to decrease, because the expectation is going up, and even if they stay stagnant, it's gonna look like a decrease,
okay,
because the bar keeps getting raised.
okay,
So if we're keeping up with the bar, it's telling us, okay, we're on the right track, we're
Okay.
doing the right things. When you can shift kids into that above average and well below, above average while the bar is raising, that's
Yeah.
even better.
thank you.
No, it's good, they're great questions. Are there other questions? If not, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Chris, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved, thank you. We're on to our administrative reports. Who wants to go first? Anybody?
Go first.
Alright.
Okay, so I think the biggest takeaway I wanted to talk about was our Child Development Day. I believe in a previous board meeting, we talked about how that attendance in the past has not been great, and I would love to say that this year was the best year we've had in at least the last 5 or more years. We had 10 students, children, either ages birth to 3, come in with their families, and the county was in, some other resources were in for there, and it was a really great turnout. We actually walked away with 4 different referrals for birth to 3, which was great, because then we're able to early intervene, and that's awesome. And so that was really good, and then I noticed we didn't put anything about 4K
I was
roundup,
gonna add it to.
and I'll let Erin talk about that. Okay, good job. Okay, but yeah, that was the biggest takeaway I wanted to highlight. Okay.
Segue into Erin's turn.
Yep.
Go, I hand it right over.
So 4K Roundup was just at conferences on Monday. And that was successful to do it with a conference night, just like Child Finds.
Yep.
I think we also have done it long enough now that it's becoming the norm, and since we have Roots and Branches and all the kids they're so familiar with the school that we had great attendance. There was 21.
Yep.
Yeah. 21 kids, and 2 of them we didn't know about. They
Yes.
weren't on our list, and so that means we captured some out of the community that we didn't know were there. So, and that is a big deal oftentimes. So that was good. We were able to get registration paperwork out, sample schedules. Kelly made an awesome, Secretary Kelly Scow made an awesome one-pager of how 4K is different than childcare, like different than Roots and Branches. What tends to happen is, they get so used to communicating with the Roots and Branches office, and they continue to do that, right? And then that message doesn't land in the elementary office. And it happens with the kids too, a teacher
Sure.
might say, oh, you can go down to the office, and they'll go down to Lisa.
Yeah.
So, there is some differences between Roots and Branches and an elementary school, so Kelly did a really nice job of kind of laying that out, how that's different. Yes. we've got teaching assignments for the elementary school all enrolled, the teachers are very happy to know early. Even though on paper that doesn't sound like such a big deal, it really is. So this year we have first and second grade in one section. So next year it'll be second and third grade in one section. We currently have 2 third grade teachers who teach together. So one of them teaches math and science and the other one teaches ELA and social studies. If there's only 1 third grade teacher, he now has to teach all the subject areas, right? Same with our 4-5 team. We have 4 teachers, they each teach 1 subject. Now they're gonna have to do it differently as these single sections roll through. So I was telling Kyle, on paper, it looks like only 2 people are moving, but 7 people have to learn new content areas. So, knowing early, working on it now, having Kelly Fisher's help. Last spring, we subbed out the ones who were moving to have a day with Kelly Fisher to prepare. We have flex days planned in the summer, right? So being proactive, and it makes people a lot less panicked, and you don't realize, you know, I'm thinking 5 years from now, but they're not. So until it's your year, you don't think about it. So I had a 5th grade teacher go, wait,
Oh, what? Yeah.
there's gonna be one section for 2 years? Yes, right, cause they'll shift through.
Yeah.
So, it's been really good, trying to figure that out and letting them all try to troubleshoot and problem solve together, because then when I have an idea of how I wanna do it, if I just direct traffic and say, you're doing it, they're less invested in it, right? So, we had a really good meeting, where everybody kind of brought their ideas, and one teacher thought she had it all figured out until it was on paper and it didn't work, right? And so it was like, oh, okay, so we're finalizing it now at the March in-service, but I'm really happy for them to be a part of the process. So that's a big deal in the elementary school right now. We used the last in-services to prepare for the state exam coming up. I mean, it comes up quick, you have spring break, and then we gotta do the Ames web testing, we launch right into state testing, so it just really goes zip-zip, but, we wanna make sure we continue those proactive efforts to focus on growth, because that certainly made an impact for our kids the last couple years. Winter Olympics has been a blast. We could not have begged for better weather at Trollhagen. That was a super fun day, I think we had 30 parents there, tubing with the kids, and it was nice. It was very nice. So, we're clipping along. I do have, and if you guys have time as a board to talk about how you wanna do this, I didn't put it in my board report, but I was able to map out how we can, how we have to order curriculum over the next couple of years to get them all staggered so that you're only purchasing 1 content area at a time. So you're not purchasing all 4 in 1 year. So I did get that all laid out, still getting quotes, still getting prices, and of course, over the years, those will go up and whatever, but we gotta get into a curriculum cycle, because, you know, I can't come to the board and say, you got an extra 80 grand laying out? So, I'll let you.
Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Is that worth going to the education committee?
Well, that's why I thought you guys
Yeah, I
would,
think-
you know, Kyle said, we'll sit down and look at it, and I'm still
We have
waiting
a
on
meeting
some numbers.
on
Yeah, we have one coming up.
24th maybe?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah, it's on Wednesday, I think it is.
I'm getting close to have the numbers, but here's what happens, you open those floodgates when you call these companies,
Education.
I
and
know,
you get
and then
called
you're on their list.
8 times a day.
Yeah.
Are you ready now?
Yeah, you almost need to get yourself a
Yes.
burner phone to make
Yes,
those
and
phone calls.
then when you say, I want a quote for X, Y, and Z, they also send you, you know, A, B, and C, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
just these,
Yeah.
and they're always trying to add more, right? So, I'm getting there.
Well, that meeting's in 2 weeks. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
I think
that's how
it's
you
great,
wanna do
I think
it.
it's great to have it go through the education committee first, and just because then they can really do that deep dive, and I think we've been great about using that committee structure for those focused kinds of things, and then they can make a recommendation.
And so,
If there's something we need to approve at the full board level.
I mean, really, you'd want, you know, Kyle and I were looking at a 5-year cycle so that it would be you know, reading, math, science, social studies, electives.
Sure.
But then you're,
And it might not be in that order.
right, but then
Right,
you're
yeah.
purchasing 5 years of reading,
Right,
right? Like, to keep
Yeah.
that cycle going, so, you know, I was trying to figure it out so that, and there's certainly things that we can skim the fat, right? Like, there's things that we don't have to keep reordering every year, but, so that that dollar amount is about the same
more predictable.
each
makes it
year,
better.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, we're at least getting it on paper.
Excellent.
And Libby might, you know, she might like take me out to eat or something.
She'll be
So
real happy. She'll be real
Yeah.
happy if we.
Yeah,
can
this
plan
goes to 2037.
That's a scary number, but
Yeah.
Libby will be
Yes.
happy with that.
Yeah.
And that's important, obviously, for planning purposes, so thank you. All right. Any questions for Erin or Jada before we move on to processing time? All right, you're up.
Lots of fun stuff happening at the high school. We plan the winter wellness activities to happen on Thursdays and Fridays of this month, all of February. So there's dress-up days that we're doing, tomorrow's pajamas and flannel Friday. And then next week is whiteout day, and then Olympic flag colors. We separated the whole school into teams. They were assigned countries, so there's competitions and trivia during lunch, and then tomorrow we'll have our first after-school assembly. It's gonna be dodgeball competition. We'll be competing with our country. So that's pretty exciting. It's fun. And then we'll end with last Friday of the month we do a bigger celebration, like a half kind of day, where they get to play some more extended games, and should be a pretty good time. There is a middle school dance coming up on the 27th also, Under the Sea theme. So that should be a fun thing coming up. Solo and ensemble for middle school went very well. I got asked for email from Mrs. Sala, and she said there were 5 schools involved, Frederic, Lux, Iron Webster, Grantsburg, 100 students between 4 sites, 2 instrumental and 2 vocal. We had 11 events scheduled for Frederic, 3 solos, and the rest were ensembles of 4 to 16. Of those events, 2 did not perform, 3 received a rank of 1, including our small band class. 5 received a 2, and 1 received a 3. She had to explain all that to me. New info to me. I'm not really up on that, but we did really well, and the judges had really positive things to say about our facility and all of our students. So that was really awesome to hear. Speech for middle school and high school is going on right now. So like as you were told, high school went out today, and I told staff meeting this morning, they're practicing their speeches all over the place, and one of the groups asked me if they could do theirs for me, and I don't know what I expected. I didn't expect what I got though, but it was good.
They're amazing.
They're super excited to read it, and funny, and if you have a free 10 minutes, one of them asks you, you gotta spend 10 minutes, but it's pretty worth it. It's pretty worth it. So I really had a good time hearing a few of those. So I imagine they're doing well today, hopefully. Aside from a lot of people being sick, but they have the option to record their speech and send it in for the first one. So even with that, we still have some options to go to the next level with that. So it's kind of exciting. FBLA state is coming. So we had qualifiers, and Mrs. Teeth sent me a report for the people that competed in that. So we had placing first in our competitions were Oliver Slather for customer service, Kenneth Chanel, hospitality and event management, and Charlie Jensen for networking infrastructures. Second were Zakani for information technology, Royce Anderson, public administration and management, Laurel, retail management, and then thirds, Hunter Root, Bella King, Isaiah Moe, Stella Chanel, and Carson Anderson, and various events. And then placing fourth were Marta Rodriguez, Amelia Degstead, Palin Phillips, Gabby Denver, and Lee Flotti. And first through third go to state. And so the trip leaves on April 12th, and they're returning on the 14th. So pretty exciting. We have a good number of people going to state, and they're pretty excited to go. But overall, again, a good report, there. Math counts had a state qualifier, Zach Lundquist, so he's going over spring break, is when that's happening. So we're gonna send off for him on March 5th. And it's not the same day he's going to state, but, it's the last day of school, it's closest to it, but they're going over spring break, so kind of exciting. So, yeah, I mean, as a 7th grader also, so he'll be competing for another couple of years, so it's also pretty exciting. We had schedules go out to staff, moving to an 8-period day, so those kind of conversations have started for needs on, curriculum and just absorbing what's gonna be happening next year. I think those have all gone pretty well. So I think that transition will be good. We had our final pre-ACT go out on, I don't know which day that was, I think it was last week, on the 11th. And, we had some good improvement from our first scores. Our first scores in English were average of 16, now they're averaging a 17.8. And reading, average of 16.9 up to a 19.4. Math, 18.9 up to a 21, and science, 19.8 up to a 21. And the overall composite scores went up, over 2 points as well from October, so that's really good growth. And I think they're fairly encouraged to see some of their improvements, so we're still planning on some more prep for ACTs, and we're gonna break those down and give them some opportunities in their Viking times to improve there, in some of the areas they're feeling they need help with. And then the last thing I've got to share about, 2 more things. I wrote some stuff on here too, because some stuff came up after I put this in. Parent-teacher conferences was the 12th and the 16th, and so teachers, over here, for every conference thought they had, they either had a parent contact, in person, or we tried to get an email out or a phone call. So we had reported from the teachers that sent me back 556 parent contacts on those 2 days, which I think is pretty awesome. So, yeah, it's good, really good to hear. We only have, a third of that many students, so it's pretty cool to have so many, positive, things go out. And then spelling bee happened today. Hadley Lundquist went out, and I know she made it to the round. There was 8 people left when she went out, no word, but did a really good job, came back and was pretty positive. Seemed pretty good
Marty
spirits.
Stever was the girl from the elementary school. They made it through the 3rd round. Rhonda said there was, of the 30 kids, they made it to the last 8. So that's pretty cool.
That's
very nice.
That was at Season.
That was it.
Yeah.
And that's like Hadley would have been competing against all middle schoolers, so
Yeah.
8th graders as well, so.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Any questions for Marcus? That was a lot going on. I just wanna say thanks for all the work that you guys have been doing around the schedule and preparing for next year, preparing staff for next year. That can, like you said, be really stressful, and when they get advance notice and can talk through what's happening and what changes are coming, cause there are some big changes coming, and that's so important. So I really think that's great. We have to support staff when we're throwing our stuff their way. Kyle?
February 9th, I attended through WASBO at CISA, a declining enrollment, workshop. There was 12 districts there, we're all pretty much facing it, and there's 30-some districts in CISA, and pretty much this whole region is declining. They didn't have a lot of great answers, but at least it was good to commiserate and then have some ideas. Right now, there's 6 bills on the assembly floor about either consolidation or whole grade sharing. Their session should end Thursday. I don't know how much progress they'll make. The governor could call them back for another special session, but sometimes they just call to order and they close it right away, but we'll see. Hopefully something will come out of that. Libby and I have been looking at self-funding our health insurance, but we're not gonna do that for next year. We need to do more research and see where we're at. I'm meeting with SF next week, our insurance broker, about our health insurance and seeing our options are out there. I'm also gonna review our property insurance with them at that time. And then I have the views, cause at our committee of the whole, we talked about how many people view the meetings. And so you can see the last 4 months, how many views we get and about how long the average viewer stays on for. I don't know what it tells you, but it's interesting data, I mean, it's out there, it's available for people, so.
Yeah.
But it's 25 to 98 views and anywhere from a minute and a half to 6 minutes, so. It's there for enough people wanna see it, so it's good.
Excellent. All right, any questions for Kyle? All right, on to our board member reports and governance. We have some committee updates. The education committee met on February 2nd. I don't know if there's anything that we haven't talked about. No, we haven't met since then.
You wanna talk a little bit, Chris, since?
Well, I think that, it was really helpful for me anyway. Mrs. Stotty, explained the weighted grades. That was the biggest thing for me to you know, shift from a trimester system to a quarterly system, making sure that each grade level has, you know, the, full credit for everything they've done. And I really appreciated the way she took us through that. That was really good.
Right, cause we wanna make sure that when the class of 2027 and the class of 2028, if someone took something during a trimester and someone takes it during the semester, that it's weighted equally when it balances out for their GPA and class rank. So the system we have balances that out, so that's good. It takes a little bit of math and a little.
A lot of math.
It takes a
Oh,
lot.
okay,
A lot of
there's
math.
lot,
I'm gonna go with a lot of
But
math.
we got it, and so it's
Excellent.
fair, and no one, if a parent says, hey, how come this kid's ranked higher, they shouldn't know their kid's numbers, but you can say, this is how we determined where your son or daughter's at and
Sure.
why. And it won't matter which year you take the class, so that was the first important part.
Mm-hmm.
We also talked, quite a bit about senior seminar, pros and cons of it, and how that can be changed for a quarterly system. So, that was interesting.
Cause over time, that's mattered on which department held it. It's been in English, it's been in social studies, it's been in business ed, and so it takes on a different take where it depends who's got that curriculum. So we're looking at, and later on, I think it comes up with graduation requirements of eliminating the half credit for senior seminar, and there's also a half credit for business ed. But they already have to take personal finance class and information processing as a freshman. And so they already have two in that department, that'd be a third class in there. And family and consumer education, because Carrie I teaches elementary, middle school, and high school art, and then FACE, it's not fair to the kids to say, hey, you gotta get a FACE class in, but it's gonna be only offered 1 hour a day, and it might not fit in your schedule and you might not the whole 4 years you're in, so we wanna have some flexibility there, but we'd rather recommend that it's a half credit either in the business ed department or the family and consumer education, so they have an option, because we wanna still push those areas, but we can't have it that it's not, that, you know, all of a sudden you get stuck and that drives your whole schedule your senior year. Well, that's not, you gotta be fair to the students too when it comes to scheduling, cause it's tough.
So with our change from trimesters to semesters, we had previously approved the changes in those credits, cause you gotta make it right for each of the classes, so we had done that already. And so now the next step, what's on our agenda tonight to approve is that recommended change of eliminating those three pieces that are requirements, and instead requiring the half credit in either family and consumer ed or business. So that's the thing that we would approve tonight.
Correct, and then.
That's what the committee is recommending.
That's
to us.
correct.
Yeah.
And then, on our next meeting on the 23rd, besides talking about the curriculum rotation, we have some other topics that we're starting to kick around. We talked about volunteerism, but we don't wanna, you can't say, hey, kids, you gotta volunteer so many hours if you don't have an approved list of activities for them to choose from, and who's gonna monitor it, and how you're gonna make sure they're making that progress, and it's a legit, not just mom or dad signing off, oh yeah, he did 20 hours this summer. You know, we want to be if we're gonna put it in, we'll make sure it's vigorous and accountable in how we're gonna do it. And so we gotta flesh that out more if we're gonna make that something in the future. And then we talked about, is 3 credits in math, that's what we require, that's what state requires, should that be increased? And then we talked about science as well, because that's 3, and that's just a concept we're just discussing. And we what's going on in, tech ed, the industrial arts wing. And right now we're saying, yeah, let's keep that because we value the trades, and our community surveys of the community values that too. And every student should have some basic knowledge of how to use a tool and the basic skills in there, so, yeah, so that was, I don't know, anything else, Chris? But
Well, just to touch back on
Yeah.
volunteerism, that also seemed like a really good place to make more community contact and to involve the community. And so if we can reach out to all four corners of our district and find people who might need some high school kids, you know, for the Easter egg hunt out at Indian Creek in the spring, you know, those kinds of things. So, those are some of the ideas we were tossing around, so it could really, you know, be a positive thing.
Yeah, I'd be interested in what you guys find. I think the biggest challenge, why we moved away from that when we did a number of years ago, was that it had, cause we used to have a volunteerism requirement, and it had sort of devolved into, well, I swept my uncle's garage and that was a volunteer project, kinda thing that happened. And so having that approved list, like Kyle was talking about, or things like that, so that kids are having experiences that match the spirit of what we're trying to go for, I think would be really important.
And when you're talking about the whole purpose of volunteerism in small communities, it makes more sense for them to be engaged in a community project that's maybe
Right.
in their locale, you know, or in their,
Yeah.
you know, maybe their family's already involved in it, but it's
Right.
a community thing,
Right,
so.
right, yeah.
Would it have to be in the district for the volunteer stuff?
we haven't gotten that far, maybe,
Oh, okay.
but,
Yeah.
but we gotta make sure the kids have access to it.
Right.
Cause you know, and if we said, you know, I was throwing out there, so many X number of credit, hours per year, you gotta remember freshmen can't drive.
Right.
You know, and even a junior or senior may not have access to a car, so we gotta frame it for them so that it's a successful program and it's legit stuff to help the greater good. Cause that's what we're trying to promote.
And also, we're gonna talk about the evaluation later of the board evaluation, but, it seems like we need more engagement with our local community. And so I think that would be more of our focus, personally,
Right,
that's just
right.
my
Like in
opinion.
the, okay.
Mhm.
I just didn't know.
Yeah.
No, cause like in high school, like I volunteered at like the Humane Society, there was like different stuff, but it wasn't in the,
That's true, we don't
district.
have Humane Society, I don't think in the Frederic district.
not in the, but I'm
Right.
saying like there's
But
one
there's
in
one in
Webster
Simon.
and one in, yeah,
It's not being ring.
right. But that's a drive.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
something
it's a
You know
good
what I'm
for you guys
just
to talk
saying,
about as a
like some
committee.
people really love animals, or if there's like something that kids are really interested in, instead of like,
Well, and a list of approved opportunities doesn't mean it's a list of prescribed opportunities. It doesn't mean
Right.
that every kid has to
Right.
touch every opportunity that's on the list.
Right, you
And
can,
so
and I
I
mean,
think
there might be
you
a,
want a list that's robust enough to capture things that kids are interested in doing, maybe good at doing, or that there's some reason for them to get something out of that. Because otherwise the challenge is that it becomes another thing that they're voluntold,
Mm-hmm.
and they get nothing out of it, and then what have we done by having the requirement? Which was why we moved away from it in the past, is we weren't in a position to say, oh, we can make this be really valuable, and so we didn't wanna continue with it. But there could be efforts to reignite it, but we need to make it, I think, be valuable for that to. Otherwise, you're just having kids do tasks and they're like, I hate this.
right,
that's why the committee's gotta frame it before we bring it as a
Yep,
recommendation, cause if we
right.
can't frame it right, then the recommendation, we don't add it.
Right.
right.
Even though volunteerism's wonderful, but
Right.
if it's not done in the right vein, then there's no sense doing it.
Yeah, there's a difference between supporting volunteerism and making it a graduation requirement, is the
Right.
thing.
No, yeah,
So,
yeah,
Right. Right.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so we'll have an opportunity in a little bit when we get to action items to approve, hopefully, that recommendation from the committee. Again, just continuing through the pieces of the change from trimesters to semesters. Any other things, Chris, from?
No, that's all I
Okay.
really had.
Great. We did have our committee of the whole meeting on February 4th. We were all there. I think the biggest takeaway from that was, just reviewing results of the survey, that the community is really interested in, a newsletter communication, so we're gonna be working on bringing that back. That was probably one of the biggest, takeaways there. And then, policy committee met as well on February 10th, lots going on in committee work these days. And we do have a policy update to approve. Kyle, do you wanna go through kind of what you put together?
Yeah,
So,
the-
you know, what-
basically, these are the policy numbers and the title, and then what the adjustments were within the policy. So like, 213101 was reading instructional goals, but it has to align with what's now the law in Act 20. So the policy that we worked on does do that alignment. 20, you want me to go through each one?
No, I was just so people know, cause one of the things, just to remind everyone that since we have Neola, they, from time to time, will give us the updates that we need to make to policies to keep them, for instance, in that case, aligned with Act 20. So,
Right, Neola, it's about 3 times a year,
Yeah.
Neola sends out an update, and so then these are the ones that we discussed, and I put down some notes, I have it, but the policies align, and this is the reasons why those were on Neola's radar to look at.
any
Yeah.
questions or dates there? So we'll also, that's under, our policy section, we'll vote on approving those updates as presented. All right, discussion from the state convention, which now feels like it happened a million years ago, even though it was really only a few weeks. Emily and Renee and I were there, Kyle was there as well. I don't know, Emily, if there were any things from that.
I didn't bring my notes, I'm sorry, I did not
It's okay.
prepare, but, it was a good, convention, I think. I think I pulled some nuggets away. It felt like there was a lot of repeats, and maybe that's just what happens when you've been to a number of them, and then you kind of go to similar ones, but there were, and it's like, I'm realizing now, it's like, oh, I'm understanding more, whereas I think when I first went, everything felt so new and so fresh and so like surprising, but, I think my nuggets, that's floating to the top of my head is, and it's nothing new, but it was a good reminder to focus on 1 or 2 things at a time, and I really think, after our community survey, and we kinda can get excited about a lot of different things, or feel like we should put our focus in a lot of different things, and then we say, okay, administration, do this, here are our ideas, or here are the things that we got inspired about, and go do it. Like really focusing on 1 or 2 things, while still recognizing that we're just doing all of these really fantastic things already, and that those are already in play. So it wasn't necessarily like a major takeaway, it was really refocusing my own thoughts of like, okay, what do we wanna focus on in the community service? What is the 1 or 2 takeaways that we wanna build on? And then with, of course, the administration's already focusing on their tasks, like how we can best support that. So that was kind of what I think I felt inspired by, is like, just honing in focus a little bit.
I thought the keynote speakers are pretty good.
They were
Yeah.
exceptional.
Yeah.
They
They
were
were
really
exceptional.
good.
Yeah.
And it was neat, the one band that performed, where were they from? Iola, Scandinavia, was a small school. Usually you end up with the Eau Claires and the Milwaukees and the Waukeshaws, and it was nice to have a small school represent, and they were
Yeah.
phenomenal.
They were great.
Yeah.
Oh, and maybe you wanna piggyback off of me, cause I think we've talked about this a lot, but, I don't know what to do with this yet, but it's an area that I think we can't neglect and we will have to focus on is AI, within the school, and how students use it, how teachers utilize it, how students utilize it, how we track it, how we help students be, critical thinkers with the use of this tool, knowing that it doesn't go away. And so there was a fantastic speaker on the last day that Gary, Renee, and I went to, and I don't know what the answer is, and I think he didn't necessarily have good answers of like the best implementation of it, or the best like setting expectations within the school, but it's something that I think could be a profound tool and a profound challenge and a profound like danger, right? So all those things exist, and then how do you balance that? So I think we all took his resource and we're like, okay, we need to do a little bit more looking in and see how we want to not ignore it as a problem, you know, here, but embrace it and teach students how to use it appropriately.
Yeah,
And maybe that's already happening, I don't know.
Yeah, the speaker was phenomenal. He was great, and there's more trainings, you know, happening places as everybody tries to sort of get up to speed. One of the things I thought was interesting, he described that in 2021, AI was a novelty. In 2023, it was available. And now in 2026, it's unavoidable. And he said, you know, the pace of that, like no one has really been able to keep up with that. We're all still trying to keep up, and the kids have gotten on board with it faster than adults, surprise, surprise, and they're better at it than adults are, surprise, surprise. And he just was really, he said, we cannot pretend that students only have access to it if we grant it. They have access to it, they're using it. That ship has sailed. And so he was really a proponent of, this is not a place for you to institute behavioral policy. This is a place for you to be intentional about how can we use this thing that's there. So that, it was really thought-provoking, and like Emily, I mean, I don't know what that means, but he was really calling for an intentional, thoughtful process around it, and it was a great presentation. So that was really interesting. As a takeaway, I think other things that I got to attend a presentation by Kyle, which was fun.
He was nervous.
It was
I
great.
didn't like presenting, no, it was my favorite.
It was wonderful. It was co-presented. It was wonderful. So that was fun. And really, there were several sessions that I attended that were all about just sort of thinking about what data are you watching, how are you communicating that about those things to your community. You know, some of this came into our conversation when we met with the committee of the whole to talk about how are we communicating with the community and what things are we talking with them about. So I was thinking about that when we were having that discussion as well. So that was really interesting. And then I also attended a session, there was a session about just, you know, sort of financial health of districts and how do you, as a board, pay attention, you know, what are the things you should be paying attention to as a board in order to do your due diligence to watch over finance. And I will tell you, everything that they listed is something we are already doing. The way that our meetings are structured, the way that information is available, the way that Kyle shares information with us, the things that we talk through, the committee structures that we have. I was very pleased to find that we're already well set up for those things. Not that that means we don't have financial challenges, but we're well positioned for those things to be discussed and managed. And I felt really good about it, so that was good. And I was sitting with two business professionals, the business office professionals from two other districts, and they were asking, well, do you do this? Well, do you do this? And I was able to say, yep, we're doing that. Yep, we're already doing that. So that was really good and helpful too, as well.
Yeah, and something that I'm thinking about that you just brought up the other night when we were sitting and visiting, and it also goes off the committee of the whole, talking about how we better communicate out to the public, you know, up to the community of what's already happening and the things that they wanna know, communicate the things that they wanna know is, I think that, and I don't wanna steal your thunder, cause this is what you had shared with me, but you were just saying that you were reflecting on the notes, saying that, you know, picking the 3 things that the public wants to know, and like the board members educating themselves to be able to have that script, but also putting it out in all the areas that we want, is that these top 3 things of like, that is consistent information that the public is looking for and that we can put out, and we can use the community survey, we can use the committee of the whole conversation. I think I'm kind of capturing what you're saying, but you're saying like really focusing in on not here's all the information that you might need, but like really consistently and regularly communicating on these top 3 things that maybe the school maybe they chose, like, we moved out of the school because this isn't happening. Okay, well, let's pick the thing that you think that isn't happening, and let's make sure that we're updating on a regular basis of the thing that, of how we address that. And
Yeah, I think
yeah.
the sessions, several of the sessions that I attended really, just kind of focused on that process. And a lot like what we talked about at the committee of the whole is just and because we have our community survey data, we know what things our community is really interested in understanding better about our district. And so then being intentional about so let's not just have a newsletter, let's have a newsletter that addresses those areas where the community is looking for specific information. Places where if we're identifying that maybe there's a thing that we're doing that the community isn't as aware of as we want them to be, let's make sure we're including that stuff. And we can use what's in the survey results and the conversation that we're having together as a board and an admin team to choose those things. And that way our newsletter is useful instead of simply fluff.
Yeah.
Is the hope. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
maybe
really
not flood the information,
Right.
flooded it with information, but like hone it in and refine it.
being targeted and
Yeah.
purposeful about those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great.
Oh.
It was good. All right. Any questions about any of that? All right. We are on to our policy approval, approving the updates.
You have the
Board
board
development
tool on
development
there.
tool?
Do you want to
Oh,
do
board,
that?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yep, I did miss it. 7C. There it is. Sorry.
It's 16 pages long, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, just probably.
Right.
Can you read it for us?
No, it's a dense little being. It's a dense little being. In my mind, I felt like it aligned very well with our community survey results in terms of that we have areas of strength as a board in terms of our communication process and the ability to work together. And that what it seemed like we were all sort of responding to in completing the survey is that desire to be more purposeful about our communication with the community and have a better understanding for ourselves as board members so that we can do a good job of that. That's what I sort of took from it as a just kind of an overall summary. And I feel like we're on the path to doing that. And I think just keeping our focus on those pieces as we move forward with the projects we have ahead with the newsletter and the other pieces, the communication strategy that Emily was talking about. That's what seemed to come out to me in the board development tool, where we can make improvements in our functioning. I don't know if others had any different takeaways or things they wanted to talk about with that.
I did not feel like there were any significant surprises or anything like that. I think, we were, like you said, we were on similar pages, and there were no significant outliers where we're like, ooh, we really need to like touch base and see what's going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it does feel like we're operating on a pretty cohesive front, the five of us, and then the questions that we have, weren't a surprise, right? So, I think that was my big takeaway.
I don't know, Chris or April, if you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
That pretty much sums it up.
Okay, excellent. So, I mean, my thinking is that, obviously we hang on to this and look at it again from time to time, continue as we go through we'll have obviously our goal setting meetings before next school year. We have our process with the newsletter, we have our committee structures that we're using for various projects, and just continuing to keep a focus on those pieces as we're doing that work. I think will help us, and then, our hope would be to repeat this tool. I think this is a tool different from surveys. This is a tool that we maybe do every 2 years instead of every year. So look at, this is how we feel about how we're functioning now. We can use this in our decision making, and then maybe take it again.
I think it's valuable to start somewhere,
Yeah.
because the board moves and changes
Yep.
and is fluid, right?
Yep.
With new elections and things like that. So having a baseline or, where we're at now, then, if the board can, were to choose to continue to do this as it kind of, changes hands, or, then it will give
It'll shift.
give an idea, you can kind of historically look at how the board has moved along different,
Well,
action items and areas, sorry.
I think there's also a value to, we've talked about, what kind of onboarding to do for a new board member.
Yeah.
I think this is a good tool to reflect on, to say, what kind of things do we see the gaps in? And what do we need to make sure, maybe not initially, but as the year progresses for a new board member.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a steep learning curve. April and I have certainly talked about it. It's a massive learning curve to
Using that
join the school board.
acronym, I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Yep. And we're lucky as a board to have a new member with the questions and be willing to ask the questions that you ask, because my position is, if you're asking that question, a parent in our district also wants to know that information, and so I'm not parenting. Yep, you gotta keep doing it. I think we're lucky. I think boards don't often have the luxury of having a member that is in that position and will do that question asking, and I know that we're extremely lucky to have it, so. I think that's great. All right, now we can approve policies.
Go back, okay.
Yes. It's really, policy. Were there any questions about the policy updates? I mean, all along I felt like the one major benefit of Neola is because of the way they do their policy process, it does take some of the nitpicky details off of our plates, which is nice, and off the plates of our administrators, and committees, so that's excellent. So if there are no questions, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the policy changes are approved. And then, the possible action regarding the changes to the graduation requirements that Kyle put up. So again, we had already approved the changes to the credits for those class years, but looking at making that recommended change into those specific required credit areas. That feels like a mouthful to say. Are there questions, or I will make a motion to approve that. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Excellent. And once again, thank you to the education committee for all the work on that. Big change. I think it's a great change for our district, and I know it's been a lot of work, so I appreciate everything that you guys have been doing. We have our dates for upcoming meetings. We have an education committee meeting happening on February 23rd at 4 p.m. The ad hoc committee for survey design, now designing a survey for the staff, is meeting February 25th.
And the goal is to have the survey ready for the staff for the March 6th in-service day.
Okay.
Cause school perception is already working on it, but then when we get together with them, we'll personalize it for our district.
Yep.
That was at 5:30 p.m.?
Yep,
Yes.
that's at
Okay.
5:30,
Yep.
and then, the facility committee is meeting on March 4th at 5:30. And then we have our regular board meeting on March 18th at 5:30, so.
Oh, we should say the facility committee,
Was there,
we're gonna focus on the community survey of the
Yep,
track and football field and that kind of stuff, so.
did you say there was oh, never mind. You said education was on the 23rd, not the 3rd.
23rd,
23rd, okay.
23rd, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
I was off.
the education one,
you
Kyle,
want me on that, or
Yes.
do you want me to?
Yeah, or if you could give it, if you can make it great, if you can't, get into this.
Yeah.
I'll do either,
I'll be there.
so we'll go over it first, yeah.
We will, one of us can.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let me keep it cool and secret.
We'll be here all the time.
So it's a surprise?
Yeah, then you can't say no.
that sounds great. All right, we do have a closed session tonight, so we're gonna take a quick, 5-ish minute break, while we prepare for closed session. So, thank you, everyone.